Hi, my name is Rukmini, and this is part 2 of our series on living through collective trauma. And of course, the collective trauma that we are talking about is COVID-19, a shared experience that all of us have been having unfortunately, for more than a year now. And it seems to be an experience that does not have an end in sight for the moment, much as the vaccines are out and things are getting better in certain parts of the world. We are also simultaneously experiencing some other parts of the world which are going through second and third waves and going back into a lockdown state. And so it's not something that we are quite over yet as a world. In this part of the series, we will speak about the importance of self-care as we go through collective trauma. Now, naturally, a lot of times when we're going through a situation like this, the tendency is to try and make ourselves as available to our near and dear ones as possible. So very often we extend ourselves physically, mentally, emotionally to be there for other people that we care about. And in the process, we forget ourselves. A lot of times our social conditioning and the patriarchy that we live in also teach us to ignore ourselves at the cost of making sure that others around us are okay. And that's not quite a resourceful state to operate from, particularly when we're going through collective trauma. If we would like to really serve, if we would like to make sure that we are available to support and help others around us, it is important that we take care of ourselves first. Self-care is not a selfish process. If anything, self-care is a process of making ourselves more resilient, more resourceful, in a way that we can be more available to other people around us. So what do we mean when we speak of self-care in the context of the collective trauma that we're going through? We're talking about taking care of ourselves actively in at least 4 of these areas. There are many other areas of self-care, but these are the most pertinent ones as far as our current situation is concerned. We need to take care of ourselves physically, mentally, emotionally, and of course, in a social context as well. And there are a few tips and practices that I'd like to share with you around each of these areas. The reason self-care is important and needs to be consciously done is because very often it's something that we tend to do when we have time, when we have dealt with everything else that we have to deal with in our lives, when there's so much happening externally around us. This is something that we often ignore. And when we are going through the times that we are living in, it is not something we can afford to ignore, because lack of self-care has a very direct impact on our immune systems, both our personal immunity as well as our collective immunity, and it has multiple implications on health in a way that we cannot foresee if we don't actively engage in it. So I'm going to share with you a few tips that you can do to make sure that you become more and more resilient in each of these areas of self-care. Firstly, the physical aspect of self-care. Are you getting enough and good quality sleep? And it seems like a luxury at times, but it's critical because sleep has a very direct impact on our immune systems. If you don't get enough and good quality of sleep, then it has a very direct impact in terms of reducing your immunity, ending up becoming more vulnerable to simple infections and other types of ailments, which could be as simple as the common cold and cough and flu, which in the given times can lead to more severe repercussions. So a good night's sleep and a regular sleep is a very critical part of self-care. So it's something that we need to figure out how do we carve out time and space in a way that we are able to get the sleep that our body needs. The next piece is what can be broadly defined as exercise, but I also mean movement in any form. Particularly for those of us that are working from home, there is a tendency to end up being really sedentary, facing our screen a lot, perhaps spending a large part of our day in one chair against one table, and that's not quite a healthy lifestyle. So while a regular exercise regimen is important, and exercise could be in any manner that you enjoy doing it, for some of you, it could be about going out for a walk or a run, it could be going to the gym, it could be doing yoga, aerobics, any other form of exercise. But also, aside from exercise, please do include regular movement in your day-to-day routine. And when I mean movement which could be as simple as making sure that at the end of every Zoom meeting that you have, get up and stretch for 2 minutes. It could be about using maybe 30 seconds before every phone call or every Zoom meeting that you need to go into. Make sure that you do a spot run just to get the body alive and working. And that sense of movement is really important because it's not just about activating physical muscles, but it also has a huge impact in terms of making sure that the body and various organs in it are functioning in a normal way and they are activated. And the third part around physical self-care is to take care of the nutrition. What kind of food do you end up having? Are you sure that the kind of food that you're having in a work from home situation is appropriate for the situation, or have you been following a diet which you were used to in the pre-COVID days and you've simply managed to carry it forward as a matter of habit? If that is the case, you might want to review your diet because a situation that involves work from home, not so much exposure outside to the sun, perhaps not so much physical activity as earlier, might require a change in diet and nutrition. And that's something you might want to pay attention to. Make sure that you calibrate your diet, your food intake in a way that is appropriate to the kind and level of physical activity that you currently have, so that you have balanced nutrition. And that naturally, all of these three things put together have a very direct impact on how resilient you are physically and how resistance your body can provide to any potential diseases. So that's the physical aspect of self-care. Let's look at the mental aspect of self-care. Of course, there is work to deal with. There is professional work, there is work at home, there is work that you perhaps need to do with your family members, your community, and so on. And that naturally takes up most of your time. But aside from work, which naturally also uses your mental faculties, it is important to invest a little more time and effort in also making sure that you're taking care of your mental health in a manner that is sustainable. One thing that a lot of people have been reporting great results with in terms of a mental health point of view is to learn a new skill. Given that a lot of us have access to working online, it might be helpful to use the time that is saved from perhaps your commute, your regular meetings that you might otherwise have invested time on in your physical office space. Utilize that little bit of time that could potentially have been saved, if it is for you, to learn a new skill. And I'm not really talking of a huge investment in time. It could be as simple as investing 5 minutes a day to look at a short video on something that you have been keen to learn more about. It could perhaps be to download an app on the phone that allows you to learn a new language by simply investing 3 or 4 minutes a day. Right? The idea and the key is regularity. It is not about the quantum of time invested. We're not saying dedicate an hour a day to learning something new. The idea is to provide just enough input to your brain in a way that it is constantly building new neural pathways, which is a really healthy process for the brain to stay active, sharp, and alert. And that's something that all of us need in the times that we live in. The second piece that can contribute heavily to mental health is to make sure that you manage your calendars, whether or not you use calendars on your devices and smartphones, or perhaps some of you use a diary to schedule your day. Either way, use calendars effectively to ensure that you very clearly carve out time for self-care and all kinds of self-care, physical, mental, emotional, social, and so on. Make sure that there are slots in the day that are available where you specifically focus on taking care of yourself. That goes a long way in not only clarifying what your day is going to look like, but also making sure that there is clarity, there is a sense of ease that happens for your mind when you see that there is time laid out to look after yourself, even as you're busy looking after other people around you. And thirdly, and importantly, for the sake of your mental health, please make sure that you declutter your physical space. The more organized the physical space around you is, the lesser the mental clutter. So set up your space, particularly if you're working from home. Try and set up your workspace, your desk if you have one, or perhaps a corner in the house that you use for work. Try and set it up in a way that there is really less clutter. There is also less visual clutter in the area that you're able to see beyond the screen of your computer. And overall, try and maintain a decluttered space, whether at work or at home, because an organized external environment also impacts an organized internal mental environment. So both are correlated, and therefore do make some time to ensure that you're doing what it takes to take care of your mental health. Coming to emotional health, this is something that pretty much everybody has reported issues around during the pandemic. Naturally, because none of us living on this planet at this point in time has ever experienced a pandemic of this scale. Of course, there have been pandemics before. Some of us perhaps have grandparents who've survived through the 1918 influenza, but the world was really different at that point in time. And none of us, therefore, know how to navigate the circumstances that we currently live in. And that by itself is enough to cause emotional stress and trauma. So some of the things that can help in reducing emotional stress and alleviating any emotional trauma that you may be going through is to include some form of meditation practice. And when I say meditation, I don't necessarily mean sit down and close your eyes kind of meditation. Meditation looks and feels different to different people. It could perhaps be listening to a piece of music that you enjoy. It could be going out of the door of your house and just pacing around on the hallway, or perhaps going down and taking a walk around the area that you live in. That could be meditation. It could perhaps be engaging in an activity that you like cooking or painting or dancing. Any of these could be forms of meditation. The idea is to allow yourself to experience something that gives you joy. That's part of emotional self-care. Something that allows to release your stress, something that allows you to vent whatever emotions you are expressing in a safe manner. That's what we mean by meditation. For those of us that relate to writing or perhaps even drawing abstract images, it doesn't have to be artistic drawing, you might want to try journaling. Journaling could be verbal in the sense that you could write and use words like writing a diary. It could also be visual journaling, where you simply draw out or doodle or make mandalas or color. You get those stress coloring books. All of these are ways to journal in a way that you allow yourself emotional expression. For those of us that are able to reach out and actually talk to people, perhaps people that physically live around you, or perhaps even people that you can reach out to over phone or online, that's of course a great resource. And by all means, if you have the luxury of that resource of being able to reach out to another person and share your emotions, by all means do that. If not, please do make sure that you have ways of journaling through which you are able to let out your emotions. If you feel that you're not living in a space that has privacy for you to be able to journal, perhaps you're worried that somebody might look into your diary, you can also journal in a way that you're able to write or draw something on a piece of paper and immediately destroy it, so that your privacy is not breached. You may also want to consider using an online journal, or emailing something to yourself in a way that it is safe and nobody else has access to it. But it's really important that no matter what emotions you feel, you don't keep them bottled up. So please make sure that emotional self-care is part of your daily routine and you allow healthy expression of any emotion whatsoever that you experience. Remember, no emotion is wrong. Emotions are merely biochemical reactions to our environment, and there is nothing wrong about even the most negative of emotions that you might experience. All it asks for is healthy expression. And the final piece around self-care is around social self-care. A lot of us perhaps might be experiencing a loss of personal space or a loss of boundary, particularly if you're working from home. There is naturally your workspace, which now has access to your home through your screen. And there is also the home space that has access to the way you work. Either way, boundaries are breached. So it does become important to really consciously manage boundaries in a way that you have conversations with people that you work and people that you live with to negotiate and agree upon what kind of boundaries work for everybody involved. Would you be okay if there are people that are visible on your work screen? Would it be okay if you close the door of your room while you work from home? Those are conversations we need to have. And yes, perhaps some of us are not used to having these conversations. It might feel a little awkward to begin with. And yet, it's important because open conversations around boundaries also lead to healthier relationships, both at work and at home. And therefore, even if it feels like a tough conversation, please invest time and effort in it. Clear boundaries go a long way in creating healthy relationships. You may also want to use online tools effectively to create social health for yourself. Perhaps you may want to access an app which allows you to monitor your stress levels, an app which allows you to seek counseling where needed, in a way that you're able to discuss your relationship issues, your personal situations that, or perhaps for some of us who might be going through uh, really unpleasant situations such as domestic violence, verbal, physical, emotional violence. Please make sure that you use websites, tools that are accessible to all of us online at the click of a button. There is nothing wrong in asking for help if you need to. A healthier you will lead to a healthier society. So when you're taking care of yourself, it is not a selfish act. It is something that it becomes eventually a contribution to the society, the community, the family that you live with. And finally, for some of us, it might be relevant to build a new network because we may not be able to go out and meet the same kind of people that we used to before the pandemic. And that might make us feel extremely isolated. It might be a good time, therefore, to, of course, use online tools and stay connected with the people that you used to go out with and hang out with earlier, but also use this opportunity to build perhaps a newer network, perhaps connect with neighbors or people in the community that you can easily reach out to, and build new relationships. Yes, the pandemic is a difficult time for all of us, but it is also a great opportunity to review our lifestyle, review how we take care of our health at the various levels of health that we have been speaking about, and also review the way you connect with the world, review the way your relationships are. Are there things that you need to change? While these are challenging times and there is collective trauma that we are going through, it is also a great opportunity for us to look at what do we want our life to look like once this is over. So do reflect on that, and I will see you again in the next conversation in this series. Take care.
Help Talks are daily health-related talks held at Health Education Library for People, Mumbai, India. For more information visit www.healthlibrary.com. Subscribe to Help Talks channel. Be better informed about your health.